It's great seeing you, my friend. I feel like now you're part of like a yearly tradition for me around this time because usually when I get a chance to talk to you, it's just the end of Halloween, just the start of the holiday season. And right in the middle is this great show that comes to this area of Canada.
Yeah.
And it has to do with this group. Hold on. Let me move that over. This particular group, and it has to do with their music, their legacy, and everything they've done for so many people, for so many generations
Yeah.
around the world. What's the big show you're involved with, my friend, that I've had the chance to see almost every year, and I've always enjoyed it every time?
Well, I hope you come to see us this year and next year and for the duration of the tour. Um, we are trick or treat, by the way. We are getting ourselves in gear for our new tour, which is starting up now very slowly in Ontario, but we are going coast to coast.
This is
So
amazing.
we will be going from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and of course the Middle Earth in between. Yeah, so yeah, I think we're kind of gearing up for a lot of travel, which means that obviously there's a lot of packaging and things that have to happen in order to get trucking and transportation, and we have to move a lot of people around. Look, we're literally moving, I don't know, somewhere between 13 and 25 people around at any given time. And it's a lot more than anything I've ever had to do in the past. When I was in a five-piece band with two crew people, we could get in a van and just drive. But now no, it's nothing like that now. By the way, if my camera moves around, it's this new Mac computer. It's got this crazy little thing that if I move my head, it's going to follow me. Watch.
I
Yeah.
love it. I got to get something like that.
Yeah, it comes with the latest software. Yeah, anyway. So obviously the show is doing well if I have the latest Mac software. Um, yeah, that's the Coast to Coast tour right now includes everything from I guess the one coast is Florida this coming February, and then we will be before the end of next year we will be in Vancouver. In May we're in Alberta. We are currently putting together an East Coast Canada tour as well because we love the East Coast and we definitely want to be out there. Yeah, I mean the logistics has been crazy. I get up very early, I go to bed very late, and then I get myself in gear to do some practicing because I got to jump on that stage too. I got to play some stuff while I still can, as long as I'm, keeping young and svelte like this, I may as well get up there and perform as well. Yeah, I don't know what else I could tell you about it other than the show has some great new players in it as well. We, as you realize, it's a show where we often take off with the same troupe, and then sometimes we go out with other people who have been members of Rain, or they work with the Moody Blues. I think we've got somebody from I guess anyway. I think we've got somebody from In Excess joining us as well. So I don't know. I don't know who's coming, where, or when. For all I know, Paul McCartney will show up and do a set with us. Yeah, I'm hoping. But the show has really come into its stride in many ways because it's certainly become a lot easier for me to find great players. Where it was always a bit of a struggle to find people. now it's now I'm getting calls saying, "Hey, do you need somebody for bass?" And yes, I always do. I always do because again, with a great show, um, we have to play a lot of consecutive nights. And consecutive nights, of course, when you're young and crazy, and you're willing to jump in the back of a van and lie and sleep in between drives, in between the column speakers or the amplifiers in the back of a van. But these days, we have a lot of big drives and buses and things like that. So when you do 5 days in a row, that's pretty taxing for young people like us. But but and it doesn't look like that's going to let up at all. So it looks like we're going to be doing 5 and then a night off and then 3 and then a night off and then 4 and then a night off. It's I die for that night off. But yeah, it's coming into its own in a lot of ways on stage because, of course, we're always refining. We're refining the show from a pacing standpoint. We're refining the show from a performance standpoint. We've got all sorts of new and groovy gear that we work with that allows us to perform better and allows us to perform more succinctly and obviously keep up a pacing that's almost impossible to do, but remaining organic. There is no backing tracks. There is, literally, there's no synchronization of anything. Everything is run by human beings. The lights, the sound, the projection, everything is run by human beings. There's nothing at all that's not organic. And I think I'm taking pride in that, at least for now I am. Because I think that it's part of the charm of what gets us to be, that sort of that sound of replicating the Beatles comes from a real desire to do so, and not from a can or AI or something like that, right? So yeah. Any other questions?
Sure. For folks who have never been at this show, how does it exactly work? Because we are talking about screen, we're talking about a group, we're talking about an orchestra, and most importantly, we're talking about fans. How does this all come together?
Well, let's talk about the one's experience. Say you arrive at a theater and you have a drink in the lobby at 7:30. The doors open, and then people find their seats. While their seats are happening, our art director and projection specialist, Jane McMillan, she's designed a pre-show screen event for people so they can, they get quizzes, they get a sort of an immersive look at the people in the show that night, the people that are sponsoring the show, and all of these other little interest points, like what guitars we're using and which what songs they were used in originally, and some of the things that people wouldn't normally know. Like the average fan wouldn't normally know these things about the Beatles, but we're there to help them along, and so that also that people can see that there's a lot more than just money or time invested in this show. There's a lot of heart really invested in this show. Okay, so once the pre-show reel is over, we start in with a narration that gets you primed for what's going on. And what is going on is that from the time that the Beatles land in America in 1964, I believe it was February, could have been February 29th, if my memory serves me well. From the time that they land in America, they had about 26 or 27 number one hits. that, again, yeah, that's from the time that they landed in America, not from when they started in Britain, because they had songs on the radio in Britain, but they became a worldwide success after they landed in America. And so that's the point of departure for the One show. The Beatles land in America. We start with the songs that they played on Ed Sullivan that went to #1 almost immediately. We talk about the song and sometimes, because we do change up the show just a little bit sometimes, the songs with an S that were only #1 in Canada. So there is that side of the show as well, where it's geared towards Canadian audiences. Of course, when we're in the States, we like to punch up, what happened in that particular state. So if we're playing in New Jersey, we happen to know that the Beatles played in New Jersey, and so that particular song will appear on our set list. The idea really is to take you from 1964 to 1967 in the first set, and the first act, and that act is it's broken up in that from around 1966, 65 with Yesterday, for instance, and then from 66 with songs like Yellow Submarine and Penny Lane and Eleanor Rigby. They started to bring orchestras in. So we bring the orchestra onto the stage, again with narrations explaining where the Beatles were at and what they were doing at that time. By the way, our narrator is Al Joines, who was with Q107 for many years, and he did the Psychedelic Sundays show and a lot of the specific Beatles-oriented shows, which was why 7 years ago when we started this show, we were so excited and still excited to be working with him. So, and again, as a sidebar as well, we have upgraded all of our screens presentations to 4K, which wasn't possible when we started, either financially or even from a camera perspective. But we upgraded everything to 4K during the COVID period. And so we brought Al back in and we dressed him up and we got back at it again. And the first act ends in 1967 at Penny Lane. And then we take a 20-minute intermission. And in that intermission, of course, Jane has presented her screen show. By the way, one of the things is that the background music to both the pre-show and the intermission is hits songs from artists from Liverpool that were part of the British invasion as a result of the Beatles, directly related to the fact that the Beatles came to America and Liverpool became a hotbed. So we have all of these songs that are only from Liverpool acts that represent a half an hour in pre-show and 20 minutes in the mid-show, and they're really great to hear. It's all of a sudden you realize, wow, if you heard them in those years, you realize, wow, I'm really feeling the feeling of what it was like to be around in those mid-60 years when the British invasion took over. Act 2 kind of takes over when the Beatles were completely embedded in the studio years, and so from Act 2 forward, we use sometimes a full orchestra, sometimes a part orchestra, but even our part orchestra is pretty large. There's 8 people in our part orchestra. There's 22 in our full, and so when we travel a lot, and it becomes impossible to pull a full orchestra, the 22 pieces, but the 8 piece does a great job of it. But the full orchestra is going to be appearing next year on February 17th in Hamilton at the First Ontario Concert Hall, in Kitchener at Center in the Square, in Calgary at the Jack Singer, in Edmonton at the Windspear, in Massey, or sorry, not Massey Hall, Roy Thompson Hall in October in Toronto. So those are the bigger shows this year with the full orchestra. I really recommend that anybody that hasn't seen ones or has seen ones and would really like to get ones on steroids, come out to see the big show, because it's going to be just quite spectacular.
Now you're playing in Markham this time around, though, right? Am I correct?
We're doing 2 nights this year.
Mhm.
We had a situation where we had to postpone a show that we were going to do at Roy Thompson Hall in the fall. And because we had to postpone that show, we got jonesing for a Toronto venue. So, so we thought, okay, well, where do we pick? And Markham, the Flato Markham Theater, it's very close to where I live. And probably 50% of the people in the show live, within 5 miles of the Markham Theater. The rest, of course, we import from everywhere else. But it's one of my favorite little theaters, and it's because it's so well equipped. It's providing us with a very intimate approach to the same show. How can we scale down the show, which we last did with 28 people on stage? How do we scale that back down to 14 people on stage? And how do we make that, and when I say 14 people as though it was, well, a small, it's not small. 14 people is a pretty large organization, but we have 5 vocalists and lots of guitar players. I mean, that's the other thing about the Ones show. Maybe I want to explain for the people that don't know anything about Ones. We've taken a very specific approach to replicating the songs as they were on record. There are a lot of people or a lot of shows out there that claim that, they are, no for me. But what we realized is in some songs that the Beatles play, see, they were very adventurous, and they were very innovative. And when multi-track recording came along, they realized that they could double their voices. In some cases, have 4-part, 5-part harmonies. In a lot of cases, they would use 3 guitar parts, because the rhythm guitars would keep 2 rhythm guitars playing diametrically opposed parts, but they realized they can't take one of them out and now play a solo, right? So you need 3 guitar players to do that. In My Sweet Lord alone, we have 5 guitars playing just for the introduction.
I never noticed.
Everybody in, well, you probably never noticed because we just added the 5th guitar recently. But there was always been 4 guitars. There's 2 slide parts, where Bruce and I are playing slide, and we're doing a harmony on that. There's 2 acoustic guitar parts that are doing that, that strum along, George Harrison strum along part. And then there's a little 12-string guitar thing where he drags across and dum, dum, da, da, dum, da. So we were always a little bit shy on getting the exact sound for My Sweet Lord, because there wasn't that little rhythm guitar thing doing that strum. So I went out and got a 12-string guitar, put it on a stand just like Rush would do, or like Yes would do, or King Crimson would do. They have a stand with a guitar on it, and our bass player comes out and he strums that guitar and he strums that part. And then when that part is over, because it is right after the introduction, he steps away and plays bass. and it's a really something to. I'm kind of proud of the fact that there is absolutely no Beatles presentation on this planet that actually puts five guitars out front to recreate that exact sound. And that brings me full circle back to what I was talking about. So our main drive is to recreate the exact sound of the records and not the album version. We are recreating the version that you would have heard on the radio. The number one radio hits are singles.
Yes.
You know, remember those 45s? I don't know if you're old enough to remember. You're oh,
Oh, of course I do. Come on.
you know,
Of course I do.
with the big hole. Oh, look at he's got one. He's got
There
one.
we go.
The one with the big hole in the middle. Yeah, because they did for those presentations for the radio, they did different mixes. Sometimes they did different parts. You know, the guitar solo in Let It Be is a completely different guitar solo. You know, Penny Lane is slightly different than it shows up on say the Magical Mystery Tour album. A lot of stuff was also edited short. For instance, All You Need Is Love on the single was only 4 minutes and 35 seconds, which in those days would have been considered very long. But the actual version that they first recorded was over 6 minutes. The same with My Sweet Lord, you know. So we're doing I wouldn't say the truncated version, we are doing the versions that people heard on the radio. And again, that's something else that we're kind of really proud of, because not only are we paying homage to the band that wrote all of these great songs, but we're also paying homage to a very classic Renaissance time, which doesn't exist anymore because of streaming and digital music. You know, it's not just vinyl that disappeared, but radio stations are gradually starting to find the way of the dinosaur, and I think that it's kind of important that you can't talk about the 60s without somehow or other bringing radio into it and letting people know for the future generations, even if it's nostalgic for people from our generation, but for future generations who may one day turn around and say, "Hey, Dad, what's radio?" You know, go see the One Show and you'll know all about it.
There you go. Well, look, as we're wrapping this up, tickets, my friend, where do we find out where the shows are and how do we get tickets?
Okay, so we have a website. It's www, of course, .oneshow, that's ONESSHOW.com. And on that website, you'll see all these groovy things like tour dates, which are always punched up. You'll see videos from past performances, lots of great pictures. You'll have a chance to communicate with us as well. Drop us a note. Tell us how you feel about the show you just saw, or you know where you're coming to see us, and if you want us to say a special happy birthday. We actually have a time during the night where I get a chance to talk to the audience. And so if somebody lets me know something in advance, I'm happy to shout out that. I am really, really quite chuffed at the fact that Canadians have taken so well to our show, and the US is following suit very, very quickly. You know, I'm a happy camper. I get to play. This is what I do.
And
The
I
One Show,
get
yeah.
I get to come to these shows just like the rest of the fans. And I
You're coming
think
to
that's
Markham, I understand. Are you coming to
oh
Markham?
yeah. I'll be coming down to Markham. Are you kidding? Like I said, you know what? It's now this show has become part of my yearly tradition. And I cannot think of going through a year without seeing this show. Frank, I gotta tell you, man, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for the interview. And as I told you last year, Was it last year or the year before? Yeah, it was the year before. As soon as we were done, I went and I made sure I ordered this because I was like, there was no way I was going to go
I
without
love it.
a Beatles shirt. So, my friend, thanks for making this a yearly tradition for me. Thank you for putting on such a great show, but thank you for keeping such a great musical legacy alive.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Rudy. And thanks for the interview. Really appreciate it.